I will be talking about the muscles and fascias of the leg and the foot. Okay, so we have for the leg, we have a deep fascia of the leg, which is also known as the crural fascia. Then we have an extensor retinaculum, and then there's a dorsal fascia of the foot. And then by the ankles, respectively, on the medial side, so we have an extensor retinaculum, and then the flexor retinaculum. And then on the lateral side, we have a fibula retinaculum. Okay. And then for the muscles of the leg, they can be broken down into your anterior, lateral, and posterior group. In your anterior group, you have your tibialis anterior, extensor digitorum longus, and your extensor hallucis longus. In the lateral group, you have your fibularis longus, fibularis brevis. Posterior group, your popliteus, triceps surae, plantaris, tibialis posterior, flexor digitorum longus, flexor hallucis longus. Okay, so for the tibialis, anterior, it originates from the lateral aspect of the tibia and inserts on the first metatarsal and also the medial cuneiform. And then we have our extensor digitorum longus. This is from the lateral condyle of the tibia, interosseous membrane, anterior margin of the fibula, and this inserts on the dorsal aponeurosis of the second to fifth toe, second to fifth digits. And then our extensor hallucis longus, this is the medial surface of the fibula, interosseous membrane, and then inserts on the digital phalanx of the big toe. All these muscles participate in dorsiflexion of the ankles, so pointing up, bringing the ankle up. And then these muscles are all innervated by the deep fibular nerve. The deep fibular nerve is a branch of the common fibular nerve. So for our lateral group, this is the fibularis brevis, which comes from the distal half of the fibula and inserts on the tuberosity of the fifth metatarsal. And then your fibularis longus, head of the fibula, the proximal 2/3 of the fibula, and the base of the first metatarsal and the medial cuneiform. But this is on the plantar surface, so it comes from here and underneath to the foot. And all these muscles are innervated by the superficial fibular nerve. And they function in eversion of the foot, so rotating the foot outwards. And then you have your posterior group of muscles. You have the triceps surae, which is made up of two muscles, the gastrocnemius and the soleus. The gastrocnemius it originates from the lateral condyle of the femur and the medial condyle of the femur and inserts on the calcaneus tuberosity. And then your soleus comes from the solear line and the proximal 1/3 of the fibula to the calcaneal tuberosity. And then you have your plantaris, which can be found in between these two muscles. No, sorry, the tendon can be found in between the gastrocnemius and the soleus, as seen in this diagram here. So this would be your soleus, and then that's your gastrocnemius. The plantaris originates from the lateral condyle of the femur and inserts on the calcaneal tuberosity. These three muscles make up your Achilles tendon. Then this is your popliteus. The popliteus comes from the lateral condyle of the femur and inserts on the posterior aspect of the tibia. Here we have the tibialis posterior, originates from the interosseous membrane of the tibia and fibula. It originates from the interosseous membrane plus the tibia and fibula, and inserts on the tuberosity of the navicular and the cuneiform. This will be on the plantar surface of the foot. And then this is your flexor hallucis longus, so from the fibula and the interosseous membrane to the distal phalanx of the big toe. And the plantar surface as well, and then flexor digitorum longus from the tibia to the distal phalanx of the second to fifth digits on the plantar surface. All the muscles of the posterior leg are innervated by the tibial nerve, which comes from your sciatic nerve. And these muscles, well, I'll explain it here. The gastrocnemius and the soleus all participate in plantar flexion of the foot, so pointing your toes. And then we have your tibialis posterior, which is for inversion of your foot, so turning your foot inwards. And then you have the flexor hallucis longus and flexor digitorum longus for flexion of the toes. Moving on to muscles of the feet, you have your dorsal surface and your plantar surface, dorsal being the top of your foot and plantar being the bottom of your foot. For your dorsal group, only two muscles, the extensor digitorum brevis and the extensor hallucis brevis. But then for your plantar surface of your foot, there are quite a few muscles, but it's best to learn them in layers. So for your first layer, you have your adductor hallucis longus, flexor digitorum brevis, abductor digiti minimi. And in your second layer, quadratus plantae, lumbricals. In your third layer, flexor hallucis brevis, adductor hallucis, flexor digiti minimi. It's not written here, but you also have your openings digiti minimi. And then in your fourth layer, you have your intraocular muscles. So starting with the dorsal group, you have your extensor digitorum brevis, which originates from the calcaneus and inserts onto the aponeurosis of the second to fourth digits. And then the extensor hallucis brevis, also your calcaneus to the proximal phalanx of your big toe. Okay, so starting with the plantar surface of the foot and the first layer, with your adductor hallucis, comes from your calcanea tuberosity to the proximal phalanx of the big toe. And then you have your flexor digitorum brevis, also from the calcaneal tuberosity to your middle phalanx for your second to fifth digits, and the adductor digiti minimi, calcaneus to the proximal phalanx of the big toe, or your fifth toe, sorry. And then in your second layer, we have your lumbricals and your quadratus plantae. The lumbricals originate from the tendons of the flexor digitorum longus and insert on the proximal phalanx of your second to fifth digits. And then your quadratus plantae comes from your calcaneus and inserts on the tendon of your flexor digitorum longus. The third layer consists of your flexor hallucis brevis, which originates from your cuneiform bone, the middle and also the medial one, and insert on the proximal phalanx of the big toe. And then you have your adductor hallucis, which has two heads, your transverse head and your oblique head. The transverse head comes from the metatarsophalangeal joint, the third and the fifth one. And then the oblique comes from your cuboid and your cuneiform bones. And then they both insert on the base of the proximal phalanx. Your flexor digiti minimi brevis comes from the base of the fifth metatarsal and inserts on the proximal phalanx of your fifth toe. And then lastly, in our final layer, the interossei muscle You have dorsal and plantar muscles. And the plantar is only 3 and the dorsal is 4. The dorsal interossei muscles are inserted on both sides of the metatarsals, and the first dorsal interossei muscle inserts on the medial side, and then the second to fourth insert on the lateral sides of the metatarsals. And then you have your plantar interossei, which is originate from the medial side of the base of the metatarsal, and then insert on the medial side of the proximal phalanges. All the muscles of the foot are innervated by the tibial nerve, but then the tibial nerve is broken down into your medial and lateral plantar nerves, respectively. So the muscles on the medial side of your foot will be innervated by your medial plantar nerve, and the ones on the lateral aspects will be innervated by the lateral plantar nerve. And then for function of the toe muscles of the foot, your extensors will lift your toes up and your flexors will point your toes down. And then your adductors will move the toes away from the midline of your foot. And then adductor will bring it towards your foot. The lumbricals flex your joints. The metatarsophalangeal joints, they flex those joints. And then your interossei muscles, so the interossei muscles, these being the plantar, and these being the dorsal. The best way to remember it is pad and oh no, sorry. Yeah, pad and dab. Dorsal interossei, abduct, and plantar interossei, adduct. The dorsal away toes separate, and then the dorsal the toes separate, and then pad the toes come together. Thank you for listening.